Moving forward, just so we have like a warm ambience, so if everybody can just kind of come forward. Okay. Thank you, Sweetie. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Let's get this party pumping. Thank you so much. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Qfest, put simply, is a celebration of words. We're doing that through multiple medium process of this entire festival. Of course, we have a bias to books, but they're going to be plays, they're going to be spoken words, there's going to be movies, thing that in every way that we can basically express words and celebrate words, we'll be doing so today. Real treat. The day has already started a bit buzzing. We had a masterclass earlier this morning that was facilitated by Ehosa Maswe and Jude Idada, both of them fantastic facilitators. Ehosa is both a novelist, a writer, a publisher. Jude will be wearing multiple hats during the process of this. He has an exciting play tomorrow, so make sure you're here and you get your tickets. There's the poster right outside. Just quick housekeeping. COVID-19, please and make sure that you have your mask on at all times. With you and keep it safe as well if you're going to unattended. Competition, and there's a cash prize, so tell your friends, to tell a friend to please sign up. You can sign up right outside there. There will also be, there's also a bookstore if you haven't passed through it. If you buy a book, you get, it's a win-win. We get on with the course of the event. Could we all please stand? I would like to call on the festival director to please come up and give us some opening remarks. She is a writer, a performance poet, Bank International. Equal Diana Bassi. Could you please have you on here? Can I give her a warm welcome?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Forgive me if I sound impeded. It's because I didn't intend on stage today. But we're very happy to have you all join us on the first day of the Qfest Festival of Words. Very happy. Some of you have sat down here. I was waiting for the work for us to start our sessions. This year at the Qfest Festival of Words, we'll be looking at transcendence, words defy. Transcendence, words defy. I know a number of people have asked me, what's all the transcendence, what's all the big grammar? Are we leaving the physical body to transcend into the spiritual? No, it's not that at all. We just want to explore the things that words can do. We want to see how creative people have used words to battles without necessarily having to pick up guns and machetes. We want to see how musicians, actors, scriptwriters, novelists, poets are dealing with the realities around us, all the pain, all the disappointment from our government. Okay, we are not government today. Well, we want to discuss all the creative doing with words of a pandemic that refuses to go away. We hope that by the time we finish, these three would have been. It needs to be at the top of the discussions, whether it's in education or even in us as a civilization. The day, many performances today to the performance by Mary J. So I hope you all be here by the time later in the day. Thank you very much for the festival. Thank you.
So much. She has literally been putting this possible. So please give her another round of applause. Thank you. It's going to be, it's titled The Audit. We'll be featuring, of course, the very buzzing conversation. Facilitating that today, we have Mr. Yes, he's a multiple award-winning analyst. Okay. Wait.
Mr. Olusegun Adeniyi. I'm coming, sorry. He's a journalist, writer, and former presidential spokesman for the late Mari, a fellow of the Nigerian Academy, in several books, a front row account of Nigeria. He has also written Against the Run of Play, and From Frying Pan to Fire. African migrants risk everything in their futile search for a better life in Europe. married with 3 children, and currently the chairman of the editorial board of these day newspapers, where he writes a weekly column, The Verdict. Let's together for Mr. Adeni. We have Samuel Moye is a writer and is a novelist based in Anambra State. He's the author of the novel Each Day, Our Daily Bread. That's not included in the title. The work, written as a short story, won the 2017 inaugural Kuramo Writers Prize. It was longlisted for the 2021 Nigeria Prize for Literature and is currently a recommended literature piece at the Department of English and Literature, University of Lagos. Samuel currently has 2 forthcoming titles to give us each day and remember you. Let's put it together for Mr. Samuel Moye. And the last panelist have Silva Nze, who writes fiction and is a non-fiction and political commentator. He's the author of the acclaimed novel My Mind Is No Longer Here, 2018, a collection of stories. The Funeral Did Not End. That was published in 2012, and others. So, several short stories have appeared in various publications, including Prick of the Spindle, African Writer Mapu Tree, Literary Supplement, Calabari Review, and others. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Silva. All right, we are welcome to this panel once again. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago about this, a younger friend, and the question he asked was, are we going to be talking about how to migrate to Canada here? I said no, that's not the purpose of this session. But maybe whether our panelists will give us that expo on how to travel to Canada or the US. So this session is to talk about the art of exit, migrating, human trafficking, and Africa's brain drain. And what I wanted to say is not new, but its consequences are very, very disastrous, are very, very weighty. Nigerians leave this country almost every month, almost for life abroad. We have people from the medical sector, from IT, name it. People are migrating, to other countries in search of better life. And of course, we now have a situation whereby the thirst for migration puts many people into danger. So this is what we are going to be talking about today. And I hope that every one of us here and watching us online, we have one or two things to pick. And that will be directed to Mr. Adeni. So, in my years of experience in journalism, social migration and human trafficking, who migrate because the conditions are not okay, why not make and stay here and build your life? Which side of the divide are you, sir, and why?
Yes, audience. Let me begin from nothing wrong with migration. According to the International Organization for Migration, between 1849 and 1939, about 55 million people left Europe. 38 million of them went to the United States. 7 million went to Argentina. 7 million went to Canada. The remaining 3 million went to New Zealand, Australia, and so people have always moved. And there's this interesting story, although the context is different. I think it's still, we see from it, in the fact that people have always moved, so that we don't criminalize migration. It was the late President Rollins of Ghana. He was in Nigeria to give a lecture at Daily Times, a Daily Trust lecture. I won't forget that session. Then he was comparing a Nigerian, that's why I said the context is different. He was comparing a Nigerian with a Ghanaian. He said a Nigerian got to the immigration point in London. The Ghanaian presented his passport. They looked at it, they said, your visa expired yesterday. So they said, move aside. And the man was begging. Then the Nigerian man presented his passport. They looked at last year. He said, bloody what? Mango Park and all your great-grandfathers that came to my country, who gave them visa? Now, the story there, comparing the aggressive nature of a Nigerian to a Ghanaian. But it's all the Mango and all the people who discovered the rivers that our grandfathers were already fetching water in. How did they get visa to come here? So people have always moved, and people will move. So let's get that straight. There's nothing wrong with migration. Now the issue is the impact of migration, and that's, I believe, we should discuss here. So I want to lay down background before we get into the real issue. Even in the United States, people move from the United States to Canada because they are looking for better life. So there is nothing wrong in people moving for better life, and people will continue to move. What I want us to discuss is the impact of migration that we have in Nigeria on our society. Because people are moving for better life. They are moving because the same conditions, the same basic things we ought to provide here that we are not providing. And we'll look at some of those implications. I think that's good for background. We'll come to the real issue later.
Okay. Do you have anything to say to that? Which side of the divide?
I'm actually wondering if there is a side of the divide I do belong to. Hearing you speak, I would actually agree. Is everything moves. If I were to pick a side, we have
as mankind self, really, if you even check biblically, right? Human beings have been moving, and human beings will continue to move. Here, it's about the impact of migration, right? And I would like to add the desperation that has led to people seeking other means of making that movement, which which now presents, which now subjects them to situations that are not palatable, and also people here and wherever else who have made an industry really out of hoodwinking young people and feeding off that desperation, for their own selfish business in quotes, needs. Those will be the key issues, really. The impact of migration, people are feeding off that desperation to either get people to do the wrong thing, just to achieve what they want to achieve. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. And I thank you, Mr. Denny, for that clarification. Yes, migration is not bad. It's not bad. But like you said, when you look at the impact on the country, and in this case, Nigeria, what can you say can be done? Of course, we are not sacred, but I also think it is best when you have talent to retain them in the country. I go on LinkedIn every day, and you see testimony quotes of somebody has just gotten a scholarship abroad, and they say that. What is the impact?
Now let me come back to your first question. Many people are moving because we have refused to provide the conditions for them to stay, especially the professionals. Let's look at the health sector. I mean, you hear the Minister of Labor say that we have enough doctors. I don't know where the man is coming from. I don't know where to understand what he's saying. Many of our professionals are leaving. I faced this problem. I had a real encounter with this in February. My wife went to a store in Wuse to buy clothes. The way women buy clothes, they change. And then she was leaving the changing room. And then the big mirror fell on her neck. And so they had to take, blood everywhere. They took her to the best hospital in Abuja, dealing with that something. And the hospital, when I got there, I was shocked with blood everywhere. And the medical director was saying that there was only one vascular surgeon in Abuja. Only one in Abuja. Fortunately for her, they said that man was available that day, but in the whole of Abuja, one. That's what you find everywhere. The experts in all the field, they are living. So you can, when the man says that we have enough doctors, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And you have this in different fields. All our best professionals are living. The other countries they are poaching them. So this we have a difficult problem in our country, and it's because of the conditions that are not there. So there is no way we cannot blame government for this. But it shouldn't be a blame game. That's what I should, because my own book did not even deal with this migration. It dealt with the human drama, and it's more about human trafficking, because my book is about irregular migration, the people who go through the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea. And we'll come to that later, because that is the most dangerous dimension to migration that we witness not only in Nigeria but across the continent.
Okay. Please, we have Hilon, right? Mr. Hilon, can you hear us? I think it's off.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey.
It's your time.
All right, okay. Thank you for joining us from the U.S. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Hello,
I can
Mr.
hear you.
Hilon. Can you hear us? We
Yeah.
can't hear him.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
I say hello, my brother.
Okay. Coming back to you about Mr. Samuel. So, migration and human trafficking. What do you think is the nexus between these two?
Okay. There will always be, I know when I was first told about this, acquisition with a friend, and one of the things I learned is the difference between two very words. I actually make a mistake of using them a lot. Migrant smuggling and human trafficking. And I learned from her that there is actually a difference. People migrate normally, like we said, but then there is the aspect of migrant smuggling where someone is trying to get into another country or into another place illegally, and somebody is facilitating it. The issue with human trafficking is there's a hint of exploitation in it. There's always a hint of exploitation. So like he said, there are people who have built billion-dollar industries around this. They know that people will migrate. They know that the conditions may be personal, it could be a community issue, it could be a national issue that's making them to migrate, but they are positioned kind of like a funnel. They are positioned to receive them, but it comes with a cost. So I think that's the main issue. They know that there are people who are searching for, what's the word? They believe the grass is greener on the other side, but they may never get to see the other side of the grass. That's just the issue with it.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Silva, some people believe that if migration doesn't end, which is not possible, it's not going to stop. possible to
Well, the need to migrate and the desperation really to do that, the human trafficking industry, right? Nigerian government did trying to respond to that, set up an agency, which, well, by their standards might be trying to do their best. I don't know how many few as um, what's the name of the movie again? King of Boys, right? Where the lead actress is, she raised and that's the trend. In fact, those of you staying, is something wrong with you, you know. So back to just go back to your question, as long as those conditions are creating a very fertile ground for traffickers to continue to feed off the desperation of people who want a better life, who genuinely want it for themselves, and you know that will continue to feed and encourage the industry. It's not just in Nigeria; it's across, you know, across the world. It's all of North Africa. It's mean trade, trying to get people organization of migration. It's crazy. You just hear it, you know. 100 migrants drown in the, you know, they have bad aspirations. And as long as the traffic.
Okay, thank you very much for that explosive action. Mr. Hilon, are you there?
Hello?
Okay. This question may be personal to some extent. Like, I'm sure you've read what our panelists have been saying. So if the conditions are right in Nigeria, do you ever think you would have migrated abroad?
Thank you for your question. Very well.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, here. I I didn't plan to leave Nigeria. I didn't plan to travel. It just happened. I know there are different reasons why people travel, different conditions. Some go for education, to study. Some go for courses. Some go, as economic migrants. And some go because they just cannot live in their countries. They are literally dying in their country, so they have to travel. So for me, it happened. I went, and then kind of things, went on from there. Opportunities kept arising, and one thing led to the other. One found himself. So you cannot second guess and say, would I travel? I don't think anyone wants to leave their country. Yeah, the home is one of the most greatest need people have. Nobody wants to leave, their natural milieu and go somewhere else and become strangers. So I don't want to talk too much about this, but basically, yeah, no, I wouldn't have traveled. I would have stayed with my family, with my friends. But people travel, and we all have to travel.
Okay.
Someday we'll have to travel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Elon. Mr.
Travel
Adini.
is the
All right.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
There's this sometimes, if you don't travel, you may not realize your full potential.
People travel. The question you ask is, how do people travel? And that's where we come to the issue of migration, whether regular or irregular. You can go to an embassy, collect visa, and travel. That is migration. Ways through which many Nigerians leave the country. We are talking about regular migration here. There are 3 routes in the Republic. You eat Mali, go to Morocco, and then you go out. Or you go to the northeast. Because many people still do that too. Especially now that there is a crisis there through Cameroon. That's also migration. And then you have the north through Libya. So this is the country. The first one, you really don't ask if you have your money. But the regular one, those are the people that need enablers, and that's where traffic are. And those are majority of the people who travel, who actually go through traffickers, they go through 3 routes. And these enablers, is a huge, multi-billion dollar industry. You have hotels, you have security people, you have transporters, criminals. Because these are issues that I dealt with in my book. Those are some of the issues we're talking about irregular migration. Not big people like Elon, who went to the embassy, collected visa, and traveled because they are here to stay any country in the world. We are not worried about talking about the dangers of irregular migration. Yes. No, of course, later, we are also talking about the implications of people like that live in the country. Yeah. But that's together.
Yeah. We actually trafficking now. The topic for this session is brain drain. So I think we've, yeah, human trafficking. Because I've written some stories on human trafficking, and when you talk to these victims or survivors who went through Libya, through the Sahara Desert, and even got to the Mediterranean Sea, because I think, was it last year, I was privileged to speak with some like that. Got to the point to the Mediterranean, but be back. Of course, after spending a year becoming a slave, and working on a farm, and then somehow he found his way back home. But of course, the story is not the same for many others along the way. Some people that spoke with also would tell as they were journeying the Sahara Desert, they saw, human bone skeletons, people who fell into the well while they were hustling to get water, and the rest. So many stories like that. But Ms. Denny, do you think the government has ever been bothered?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a personal experience to that. I went to Mali. When I was writing my book, I was in Mali. What I experienced there was heartbreaking. I went to the IOM center. Many of our girls, I mean, they would deceive them into believing that they were taken to Europe, these traffickers, but they were taking them into prostitution in Nigerian madams, selling them from one to the person to the other. When I came back, I was with the embassy in Mali, and they gave me a lot of asked to help. And I tried to. I contacted people that I thought would be able to help, but I didn't get any positive response, which gave me an idea of the fact that we're really not ready to deal with this challenge. But I don't want to monopolize this respect to this migration issue. And I want Ellen to speak to the issue of the human capital, this issue of brain drain, so that before we go into the trafficking aspect. I mean, now that he's still with us.
Okay, Mr. Elon, can you just talk about some of the impact you've seen because of migration? That's regular migration. What are some of the consequences you've seen in our country? Mr. Elon?
Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Yes, we can. Please continue.
So, I mean, I only speak about migration as an individual, a writer, and the consequences, of it on my art as a writer. First of all, the consequences on the individual, how it changes you to travel to your country, and how to reinvent yourself. I know most people look at writers living outside the country as having easy. Not always easy. Because basically you're in a new milieu, and all the things that kind of inspire you, that used to inspire you when you write in, and you have to reinvent yourself. So for me, when I first moved to England and moved to America, it took me a long time before I could write my
Okay, I think the connection is bad. So
I was thinking, would I write about Nigeria? Would I write about America? So I had to.
Sorry, Mr. Hillon, the network is breaking. Maybe you'll join us later.
It's breaking. I don't know if you can hear me anymore.
We can't.
Yeah.
Let's continue from here. Okay. Mr. Silva. Okay, talking about regular migration and human trafficking. What are those things? I know some people might be watching us from, all over the country and even from abroad. What are those things that they are getting when somebody come, let me take you to Europe? What are those signs you think young people, especially because I know this thing is affecting mainly our young people?
All right. I'll say first of all, is there's this old age saying that the grass is not exactly greener, right? The impression, the illusion is that it's greener on the other side. The grass is not exactly green on the other side. But to answer your question, I'll say that there have and I've really met, right, a number of young people who are quite aware of the implications of the illegal migration. It's not like it's gone beyond. I think the information is now quite available that a whole lot of people, they know, but they still want to do it. There's this factor of that I might just succeed. So you've read reports, you've seen on CNN being turned to slaves, people are prostituting, those there are people who are still eager to go. They are looking to sign up. They are looking for where can I sign up. There's this interesting show that was on Netflix. I think I remember the name now. This lady has one of the countries. She was trafficked. She hardly managed Madame because she was kind of a threat to cartel. They found a way to get her back to Nigeria. But in Nigeria, she's not even thinking of, I can stay here, I can succeed here, I can build a life here. She's already thinking of how she can go back. Right? So for such a character who has lived the experience, but still eager to go back. So, and that's why I come back to the issue of the conditions that triggers this, right? Once those conditions remain constant, the economy does don't care. Like Jenny said, look at medical doctors. In fact, where Dr. Saudi, you had senior consultants, very, very, very senior people who have worked, who very experienced minds. So it's not young, very old people. I mean, I had friends who met there to go to Saudi Arabia. So it just tells you that push somebody who is in almost 60s to that abroad at this time. It just tells you how bad things have become. And every day the hopelessness increases, right? There's nothing good in the news. There's no hope that things will get any better. And then increasingly, every other person around you is leaving. You begin to even feel isolated and begin to even question your own loyalty, in quotes, to the to family. So while it is important to continue to harp on the dangers of illegal migration, the fact that somebody tells certain things to you, and it's not just prostitution and all, there is also drug trafficking, as one approach to migration, or just deliver this parcel for me, will make every arrangement, XYZ, just entrapped. So while it's important all of us on this panel on the travelers, so many other books, right? Now, we must always remember that even with those, it might just be me, I might just succeed. Because they see a few, quote unquote, success stories, right? People come back with interesting stories. They are wearing big trainers, speaking in a foreign accent. They're able to renovate their old parents' houses or build new ones and drive big cars. For the short period they're in Nigeria, they throw money around and everybody around is like, I want to live this life, And that keeps ensuring that despite the information on the risks, people still sign up to go.
What can we do, sir?
Yeah, no, I want to also point to that too, because I remember my interest in this book was fired by the lecture I gave in 2015 at the APOM, titled "If We Stay Here, We Die." Migration wave had just started then, and my younger brother, who unfortunately died in 2019, story is there as part. I traveled through twice for 6 years to America. He was sent back he was going to America, ship. He ended up in Brazil, was sent back to Nigeria. He went to Europe twice. So he went through this journey. And I used the story. And many people that about WhatsApp, but then I were interested in his story. That's how I started to do the story. Then in 2016, following my lecture, two Nigerians were killed in Indonesia. Then he called me. I couldn't sleep. When he carried the story, the report, that I could not sleep. I couldn't sleep last night. That he met those two people, that he met them in Mali. Very good footballer. He knew him as SON. They were killed for drug trafficking. That he could not vouch for their innocence because he wasn't there. But he also knew from our own experience that those places, they don't even want to be arrested. So and I said, with that, it's important for you to document your story. And then that's when I started to dig into the regular migration scene. It's all about criminality. Because these people recruit these people. But who do they recruit? They recruit vulnerable people. People who believe that if he said, many people are going to with their eyes a twin brothers in Kaduna, who 2017 by the federal government. But they decided that they were going back after spending 6 months. They said they had a family to feed. That they came back, they were brought back from Libya. They said if they would die, they would rather die. That they came back, they had nothing doing, they were wasting away. That many of their friends were now into drugs. Just wasting away. Die on the way to Libya than stay in Nigeria. And that's many people. And just like he said, as the economy every day, more and more people will be pushed into desperate desperate decisions, because that's what it means, because they know the danger. But they will believe that, well, let me try. I may fail or I succeed, which was the story of the 10 lepers. But not everybody enjoys the kind of supernatural way. So that's the issue. We deal with some of these challenges into desperate decisions of traveling this route.
So how do we deal with them? Samuel, we are waiting for Elon to be back.
I had been playing in my mind. You're in a dark room. When he said that, I remember when you're in a dark room and you can't see, you easily gravitate towards the first light you see. And that's the issue with people who are migrating. Where they're going through Libya, it's wherever they are, they can't see another possibility. And yes, there are people who are leaving because, and they know that there are a lot of things. Oh, I heard that they don't. Oh, I hear that you could be killed for selling drugs and whatnot. But the option is rock and a hard place. And then somebody is telling you that side. Do you ignore the 5% and stay? Or you take the 5%? I don't blame any of them.
There's no guarantee that you meet everyone on the other side.
It's a human nature. It's the reason why somebody, forgive me if anybody is betting company, the reason why people bet is the glimmer of hope. And somehow there is one chance to enter. It's human nature, but to be a resuscitation of hope. There's not a saying about, like I think it asks if the government is aware of what's happening. Yes, aware. Are they in a certain individuals who may be invested in it, but the system itself is too, pragmatic, nonchalant, that the few who want to do something can't really do anything about it.
But we want to quickly connect to Mr. Hilon to finish time. Mr. Hilon, can you hear? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I hope this connection is better now.
All right. So please finish up with your comments the other
It's
time.
a bit frustrating. I just keep hearing echo and echo. Yeah, go ahead.
We want you to feel before you were disconnected. We're actually talking about the impact of migration and losing some of our talent.
Yeah. It's interesting, to talk about the impact. How do you quantify the impact and say that this is good impact or this is bad impact? Take for instance, people outside the country who are working money to help their families. That's a good impact, Even though we would have loved them to stay in the country and develop the country, but they're still doing something outside, helping their family and all of that. So that's not necessarily a very bad impact. So there are, issues of brain. I remember when I went to Washington, D.C. to listen to Buhari when he was elected president, to talk to the Nigerian in Washington, D.C. People were asking if he was going to set up the return of Nigerians, professionals, back to Nigeria. No. That he thinks Nigerians should just continue staying where you are, keep working, keep doing what you're doing, and just be the best where you are, because there's a... So I don't know if it's always negative. Of course, we've been talking about criminality and illegal migration and all of that. The question is legal. What is the illegality in traveling? because we all have a right to travel. According to United Nations, if you don't feel safe, if you are persecuted, you have a right to travel. But the of making it illegal is to discourage certain types of people from travel. Mostly people from the south, people from third world countries, because they are undesirable migrants. They are illegal migrants. But there's nothing illegal about migration. Right? To travel, to cross a border, and go into a country and present your case. You will be heard by a judge, and they decide if you then they send you back. But there's nothing legal or illegal.
Thank you, Mr.
If you want to travel, you travel. That's the idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
We need to call it illegal using the same language that the media in the West is using, because they don't want them to their countries. Economic migrants and all of that.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Because of
They don't even out. You are people who go through the cast routes. If you go to the airport, I mean, go to the embassy, collect, travel to the country. That's a regular way of traveling. Yeah. But those who go, because these people are selling them, and that's where you have all these problems that we have in Libya and all that, which is more slavery. So those are the challenges, because they tell more on, because these people are victims. The people who are traveling, they become victims and become more or less like objects. So that's the issues we are facing. Talk about losing a lot of skills in Nigeria. Yeah. And I don't think we should. No.
That doesn't make it illegal.
No, they are illegal now. We are not talking about illegal. We are not talking about. We are talking about the cost to the nation. Not legal. No, nobody saying migration is legal. I mean, people travel.
Yeah.
That was the foundation. People travel all over. People have traveled to Canada. I mean, so there is no big deal about migration. And yes, but we are losing.
What makes me
in fact, but the education of their children, which also shows that the fact that because of what education is in Nigeria today. I mean, most of us, we attended Nigerian universities, but can we say that the universities of today are the same universities we attended? So those are some of the issues we need to deal with. And people travel, I mean, Nigerians go to India in droves for medical, and we have some of the best doctors in the world. So those are some of the issues I'm talking about, the skills that we have that are not available for us in Nigeria. That's the implication of some of these migration. It's not about the migrants. It's about the conditions we have refused to create here to make the best of our people to stay. That's what I'm talking about.
And the 24
It's not wrong for anybody to move. We can't criminalize move. People will move for private reasons. So and it's okay for. We are just looking at the implications for the country and how we can help to redress those situations. Nobody. I mean, it's not wrong to move.
Okay.
I'm too old now. Maybe if I was in my 30s, I probably would have moved.
To Canada or which country, sir?
I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Silva, do you have anything to say?
No, I mean, just to in the same line with Mr. I mean, it's not wrong to move, and we have very skilled who are living. You could be skilled making an impact in your field here, but you're thinking about, like he said, education. Thinking about the fact that if you have a heart attack right now, you might be as good as dead because there's no ambulance to come pick. There's no emergency service to rescue you. And these are some of the very little basic things that living in a more developed or in a working climate, right, can avail you. So your skill is there. You have. That's why you have senior people in the corporate world who, parts of Nigeria, are earning the right number of zeros, right, in their income. They by every standard, by global standard, they are earning very well. Because of these little things, your children's education, and that continue to make skill.
Okay, any other question from the audience? Okay, if there's none, let me come back to Mr. Adeni. There's this argument by some people, I don't know whether it is right or wrong. They will say some Indians, Lebanese, and the rest are also coming to Nigeria, that Nigerians are failing to see opportunities at home. Is that true?
I like that. I mean, I want to end on a positive note because, I mean, despite, like there are still, a lot of people are still making it in Nigeria. There are still people who are committed to this society. Like we are having this kind of, it's because of the commitment to Nigeria. And many people, there are young people who are doing in Nigeria. I mean, not everybody will travel out. There are still opportunities there. Not only for foreigners, but even for, and young people are making it here in Nigeria. Yeah, the terrain is tough. There are challenges, as there are challenges in other countries. But we cannot give up hope on Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Samuel, what's your word for the audience?
Okay. Ask the question. There's a funny face, because nation builder. I have classmates and classmates that have fully relocated from Nigeria. And here and now we talk and they ask, what are you still doing here? Do I want to travel out? Yes. Do I want to live abroad? Someday. But I still believe that there are people like me, and yes, I'm proud to say it, and I know there are many more people who will choose to stay. We are not living in the most ideal conditions, and we're not living at the bottom of the ladder either, but there are people who have not lost hope. This morning, I remember sending out messages, just Happy Independence Day, and people were warning me, don't tell me Independence Day, just tell me Happy New Month. And it still shows the level of the loss of faith and hope. But there are people who resuscitate that hope. There are people who will light the fire again. And there are those who will stay, and there are those who will go. It kind of reminds me like, I think it's the story of David when his families and families of men were kidnapped. There were those that stayed, and there were those that went to pursuit. It's an equal work. Yeah. We all have a role to play.
Okay. Mr. Silva, your last word for the audience.
Well, really, people will continue to move based on whatever pushes them and their choice. And like we've established here, it's their right to actually move. Will everybody, it might not be as, the doomsday scenario might not be as bad as it's often painted. There are opportunities here. Young people are making it. There are opportunities to even develop your skill and even be global leaders right from here. So, and then there are people who, for either because of certain circumstances or just by personal decision, will never leave. They'll be here. the truth is, the danger really is that we're losing a very important crop of the future of the nation, right? And if every hand, must be on deck to actually see how we can, turn that back, to give more young people reasons to stay back, because we, like it or not, we need this population. There is a whole lot we talk about our population, and we use it to brag and all that. That population only makes sense for the number that that are educated, that have the economic power and all that. And when you are losing that crop, you want to imagine what would to be like in 20 years' time. That's quite dangerous. And so must find ways to encourage young people to stay. But of course, and I know this is something Sadini says a lot in his columns. We need to participate in the process, of electing our leaders who hear not but do something to bring that change. And 2023 is not far off. Thank you.
Oh, so that's thank you very much, Mr. Shegun Adeni, Mr. Samuel Moe, and Mr. Ifedigo Silva. We thank you, the audience, for listening to us. And those watching us from across the country too, and from abroad, we thank you for watching us. So please, let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Whether I should apologize on behalf of the organizers, or maybe I should complain that we don't have a female among the panelists. So please do something about that next time. Thank you very much, everybody, and bye.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Mr. Silva, there's no point of you being. Thank you so much. Give them another round of applause. Your photograph. Okay. Autographs. Jack. Okay. Everybody say Qfest 2021. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. How's everyone feeling? Also, the first panel. A great start, isn't it? Very, interesting conversation, considering the fact that everyone's trying to jackpot. But okay, so now it's time for our second panel. And thank God we do have a female panelist on this next one. It's done Asian publishing. So I'm about to call up the. We just had. You're going to have to come up again, but I'll give him a few minutes to settle down before he comes in. We all have Ever Obi, who is to be coming in well. He's a acclaimed mystical novelist of the mystical novelist of Men Don't Lie, but he's running a bit late. So when he gets here, I'll let you know. All right. So other place for the day. We have Olubukola Adekusibe. Do you mind giving her a round of applause as she comes up, please? She's an author and a blogger. She's published several books, which are available on Amazon and Okada Books. Could you please clap for her as she comes up? Thank you so much. Makes sense. Thank you so much for coming. Take a seat anywhere. All right, next we have Olukorde Yishao. Can we please give her a round of applause? He comes up, please. He is a journalist. Thank you so much for coming. Pleasure to have you here. All right, Femi. Hello, thank you. Femi is a book lover and an avid reader. He lives and works in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you for coming. And addition to the list is of course, you know,
And this afternoon, we are here to examine what the role of the writer is. In the situation that we have found ourselves. And I'll explain briefly before I, when COVID-19 introduction, people defining writers from time immemorial. Somebody said the writer is someone who makes every right. He tries to change things as a writer. Someone else says the writer has no business. He cannot define, he cannot deny anything because it doesn't affirm anything. And that's why we're here to examine what is the writer, or who is the writer, and what is his what we found ourselves. I was supposed to start by asking you to introduce yourself. So I would like to write. You can tell us about your work, but why do you write? Let's start from. Thank you.
Why do I write? Actually started reading right from the Kokuba to Silver Spoon, moved to Pesek. So I always loved reading. Reading has always. The point, I sincerely I did not start off thinking I could write. Remember taking a course in, it was an elective course in my, I think it was in my 100 level by, I think it's now a professor, Shola Fosudo, right? I did not study English. I actually read geography and plan. I just felt, okay, since we were supposed to do an side elective course, let me just go and take this course and see what I can make of it. And the first assignment we were given was to write a story one-page story that will in a tragedy. And sincerely, I started thinking, what am I going to write? What am I going to write? I've never written before. And I'd actually helped people to edit works and all that. But I'd never thought to put my thoughts into paper. And I wrote that essay, submitted it. And I was surprised. I think it was 7 or 8 over 10. And I was, wow. So I can actually do this. So that made me, excuse me. So that made me realize that, okay, maybe you can actually do this. Maybe you can actually start putting all those things in your mind to paper. And that was how writing. And as I started writing, I realized that it was something that I loved to do. I could just be sitting down, I would sit and I'm inspired by every single thing I see. I could walk into a salon, go to make my hair, and I'm just looking at this person and I'm already thinking, what if? What if this happens? What if this happens? And that is how most of the story, because I write contemporary fiction. So I want everybody, I want you to be able to see yourself in my stories. It's something that relates to one person. If you can't relate to this, you relate to that. You can't relate to that, you probably know someone that can relate to the story of someone, a neighbor, you definitely realize that you know someone that story as their own personal story.
I'll turn to Olukorede Isha. I know that you trade in words. That's your profession. And I'm actually curious, and seriously now, you're a journalist. Why fiction also? They say often that the sword is mightier than the pen. I mean, the pen is, how do they say, you already have the pen in places where it can get you into trouble of your characters in your book. So why fiction? The reason I'm asking this question is to find out maybe we have forms of writing. And why is it someone like you, if I didn't do anything else, I would say, okay, the only writing is fiction. That's what I can write. But you can read every other fiction. Why?
Right from secondary school days, I'll read a book and I'll feel like, oh boy, you can do this too. That was how I started. And so when I was in just 3 or SS1, actually tried my hand on writing what I considered then novel. I'm sure if I see it now, I would say it's. Then of course after secondary school, I thought, okay, I could be a journalist too. So I went into a journalism school, and after 2 years in journalism school, I went to do internship somewhere. And they felt that, okay, oh boy, you can write. So they gave me a job while I was in school, started practicing. Of course, while practicing journalism, I'll still read fiction, do a few writings here and there. But of course, that part of my life was like largely buried until I decided to resuscitate it some 4 or 5 years ago. Writing really is writing. Even what we call fiction, especially the kind of fiction I do, is social reality. When you read what I write, you can practically pick your neighbors. You can pick your friends, pick your brother. I can't write magical realism, for instance. I can't write, I don't see myself writing fantasy. Because the few times I've been forced to the cinema to see movies that are fantasy-based, I actually find myself sleeping. The only time I was taken to cinema to go and see a James Bond film, I was sleeping. I couldn't relate. I find myself writing what I can relate with. So, though we call it fiction, I'm sure lot of people who have read In the Name of Our Father, for instance, can practically point that, okay, this is this and this is. So it's actually fiction, yes. But based on things you can actually see, you can feel, and you can point at. So in that sense, I really don't see much difference between the kind of fiction I do and the journalism that I practice, which I've practiced for 21 years. So I think it's just a way of just dancing, really. It's almost the same. Writing is right.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a very interesting question to ask you, but let's quickly, Nze. Yes, please, just tell us what. I know you do other things too, but easy man.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe simply, the simple answer would be, and this may be a little of a tongue twister. I write because I cannot not write, right? I don't know if that makes sense. The point is similar to what Olubukola said. I started reading at a very young age. I like to tell people that while some people in my generation recall their childhood around maybe computer games, and those who were a bit more affluent had maybe cable TV and all that. And I only had books. My parents were teachers, right? So I had a rich array of books to read. I read books that I didn't even understand. I read The Man Died at 10. Right? So I had to read it again. I mean, but, and things like that. So those are that's the African Writer series, Space Theater, all those were like, it was like, that was the fun things for me, right? And because I'm also like an introvert, I have a whole lot of conversations in my head, right? So it started really from recreating those characters I read about in those early books I had read. So I had those little scribbles. Corey said he would perhaps tear tear them, because for someone like me, I kept those scribbles and all, and found that I need to express myself. Because I don't speak so much, I'm one of society. I see things of them, and then I really want to write about and what is the motivations for what they do. Understand? I also do write socio-political commentary, like I've been a columnist for a number of publications and all. But fiction for me is the outlet, really, where I can really tell the human story. For socio-political doesn't go the extra mile. Okay, and I'll give you an example. I could easily write them around migration and goals, and talk about how people are exploiting young people and selling them fake stories to go abroad and all. It would be an interesting article. You could read it anywhere. It will sound very intelligent, but there is something different when I tell it as a story about somebody who goes through that experience. You go on that journey with that person, you live that person's experience, and you have the sympathy or anger or whatever emotion that piece of writing makes you feel, and that makes all the difference. And as thankless as it is to write in our climb, right, you find some of us cannot just do but continue to write, because that is how we find fulfillment. That is how we find we're able to contribute to the conversation, so making a difference in society.
Thank you very much. Your answer preempted the question I would have next, but before we talk about writing and social change, because we are trying to talk about the words, I'd like to get your perspective as a writer and other things. Sometimes I like to think, okay, these people are writers first, and then there are other things second. We'll do that just for the sake of today. The question I really want to ask, and I'd like to start from you, Salukrede, is last year was a very interesting year. We'd barely come out of the lockdowns before we had the Sorosoke movement, you know, really trying to change the narrative of this country. And after that, we've had quite a few other things have happened in literary space, in social space. If we are going to talk about the power of the writer in the way the world has changed, I'd like to get a sense of what changed, what has happened to the world really. I was still watching the TV this morning, TVC, and someone was saying that what a vaccine does, it was a medical doctor, by the way. What a vaccine does is to activate your antibodies, and then you wouldn't get sick. And if you are still start taking the vaccine, then it's not a vaccine. And said it on national TV, don't go and take it. This was around 9, 10 o'clock this morning. We already have issues with truth, alternative. The center of truth is shifting, the margin is becoming center, and all of that. I want to get your perspective as a writer and as a very informed one, as a journalist. What change has happened? What has happened to us as a people, as a species?
It is that we don't even have a complete grasp of what has changed. And I'll give you a personal example. Before COVID, I used to go to the cinema almost every Friday, Saturday. After the lockdown was eased and all of that, I just couldn't find myself back in that space. In fact, I had to be practically forced to start going back to the cinema. And even at that, it hasn't gone back to what it used to be. Go out a bit before COVID. Now, most times I find myself just being in my house. I think it's, for some of us, it's has made us like ourselves. I used to visit my mom almost every Friday or every other Friday. Even when it took me a long while to even go back to the church. In fact, that was so difficult for me. For me, that space is holy. When I get to a church and I find people using masks and all of that, it didn't look like my idea of what a church should be. So the truth is that we don't really know what has changed. Apart from the fact that, okay, we know that, okay, COVID has affected the economy. It has made a lot of businesses to fail and all of that. There are so many tiny details about the effect of COVID on our lives that it will actually take us some time to really realize that, okay, this thing that I'm doing now, it's actually traceable to COVID. We don't know yet, really.
Madam, just like to say something about that briefly.
So, just like you said, we really don't, a lot of things have changed, but we really can't pinpoint what has changed. But I think if we want to bring it back to the literary world, I think, Mr. Habila online is what I see how we do not, everybody is now doing online book reading, online hangouts, everything is going online as change from the way it was before, which was that everybody had to be in an angle. Now we have so many. Why? Because a lot of people are probably hooked up online and don't want to be here physically. So that's what I see that has changed in the literary world. I also think that the writer could also do in this aspect is that we could start to journal, we could start our thoughts into writing. A lot of things happened before a lot of us were born. We we've read about World Wars, the 9/11. Okay, so we know what happened during 9/11, but some people that do not know what happened during that period, because probably were still young, they were probably toddlers during that period. So they don't, but if we put all those things in, it is for posterity's sake. People can go back and read. So during this period, it is the pandemic period. I feel that what writers can do is to put these things down into words. Put your thoughts down. So that way, later on in life, it will become history. That's the truth. COVID era will now become history, and people can always go back to read about what happened during this period. So that's my take on this.
Okay, thank you. Just continue on that. I'd like to come back to you, Nze. I said in the introduction that people have tried to define writers, all kinds of ways. Literature class, they will tell you, one of the first definitions, they say to delight and to teach. And then our own Nigerian daddy will tell you that writer is a writer, and so on and so forth. I wanted to come to the heart of the matter now. The what can words do? What is the office of the writer in these times? And how does he go about, fulfilling office? I hope you get my question. Yes.
All right. Yeah, I do. Thank you so much. So, we're discussing the power of words. Words and the writer, right? Words are very powerful. They are perhaps the most powerful item that humanity has to do anything. Words can cause wars. Words can bring peace. Words can heal people. Right? People pray with words. Of course, increasingly our stories are documents, right? But even before then, even through the oral tradition and all, those were words that were spoken. Okay, so words are powerful. And that power can be used in whatever way, depending on the circumstance, right? There is a popular quote by respected author and, daddy in literature here, Chinua Achebe, who says that the writer doesn't provide prescriptive headache. And that is in the writer into, okay, Ray's talking about the ills of society, what is bad and all. So how, provide solutions, or how can this be solved? And he said the job of the writer is not to provide prescriptions, but to cause headaches. And that essentially is that we must continue to examine society, continue to throw up those issues, continue to challenge people, continue to challenge bad government or bad citizens, issues to the front burner. Writers hold this power because they observe society to the front burner. Writers are able to observe the social structure and every other structure on which society is built, and how those structures are people, in those circumstances, and tell them. And they could be in tragedies or comedies or science fictions or drama or whatever. In fact, they could even be in comedy, right? In stage comedy. And going back to the words as relates to the pandemic, you realize how the phenomenal growth in social media comedy and skit makers, and how that really kept the sanity of a whole lot of us during the pandemic, especially during the lockdown. And people that was the outlet of every other thing was bad news. You're looking at it and it was doomsday being painted. And people had to, feed off those skits and all, and you found many other people expressing that. Those are words that are producing the reaction of joy or happiness or laughter, as the case may be. And these words in today's age, do not have to be in books. you scroll through your Twitter, Facebook, and everything you see there are expressions of their words and give the same value, right? They are examining society, they are examining human interactions, they are examining structures under which humans exist and to light, whether they are good or they are bad. And someone who is able to examine society and bring salient issues to light. And those issues can now, they could tell a moral story, they could be for entertainment, they could be for education, they could just be for leisure or fun of it, but they certainly contribute to the advancement of human society. So that's the writer for me.
Okay. I like to turn that question on its head. I don't know if we noticed something has been happening. Arrangement. I don't think we'd ever know the complete truth of what really happened, in all the places where something happened. We only know what we are told. We only know what we see or what we are allowed to see. Please let's put our hands together for Eva Obi. It's the fantastic handsome man who has chosen to come earlier than the rest of us. We will talk at the back of the control post. Your forgiveness is not free today. Good to see you. Eva Obi is a risk writer and a financial risk analyst. Second, thank you. It's good to see you. It's good to be here. Yeah, just talking about the comments of so I was saying you would really never know what exactly happened. The photographer who I forgot, DJ somebody who seemed he said
DJ Swish.
DJ Swish. It seems I don't even know if she's still in the country, seem to be haunted or something. Apart from that, we have seen a rise in the number of fighting because opinion. Something, an opinion that is slightly different from what they've said. They come at you. Seriously. Thinking out of the writer, and he quoted Akebi by saying the writer causes headaches, doesn't provide solutions. That was a comment. And the office of the writer's relationship with the truth and then with his audience. I read somewhere recently that the writer's job is to provide the words, there's work is to provide the imagination. If the writer does too much or too little, it makes it difficult for the reader to participate telling the story by. So what do you think Enlightenment provides his office?
For it's called the council culture. To share the don't necessarily doesn't mean that I hate you in background, and because I have said something that does not agree with you, should not mean that you ask people not to read my book or not to listen to what I say or make you categorize me as a stupid person, as a foolish person. I think we just need to be tolerant of each other's best of friends. I think that's censor me because we don't come from the same background. And whether we believe it or not, our background determines a lot of things about what we do, about what we say, even how we grow. I think last years there was a Gates Foundation, a whole lot to do with what you become. You die, how long you live. Someone who is born in Nigeria, the likelihood of you dying before somebody born in Europe, it's extremely high. The likelihood of you not having a better education than somebody born in Europe, born in America, it's extremely high. So, our backgrounds, why do we have differences of opinion shouldn't translate to you campaigning that should be cancelled? And I see a lot of that like I do a column in newspaper. When I was because I reformed me, and any day they are out, somebody would have come on the phone and abuse their mother, abuse their father, and all of those things. So I said no, but I wasn't ready for this nonsense. I said, okay, this is what I will do. My email. If you feel strongly enough, you will do a mail. I know that most people are too lazy to do it. It's easy for them to just grab their phone, send SMS, abuse your mother. A senior colleague of ours wrote something one day. I know what somebody said, sent him an SMS. I said, you are a product of a leaking condom. So people say all kinds of things just because they do not agree with written. Also so afraid of just my email. If you feel strong, I've had very few email where Professor Femi I see the very young one. The best is to just abuse your mother. Most of the them see it's time to think, but an average person will just grab phone that this one has not thought about this thing that he has sent.
So you put your number in and so getting the truth.
Like wanted to speak with me, I was looking for my number. So he went to the column. He assumed that I must be there. So when he eventually got my number and called me, I told him, I don't want somebody to spoil my Friday. I usually do a column on Friday. I want to have a good weekend. I don't want anybody. So if you strongly go and send email, if you can't send email, keep your opinion to yourself.
If we come to you ever, you are welcome. This welcome is a good one. It's probably a good place. We've been the job that the writer has to do, in these times, and he's brought another dimension to it. The dimension where somebody who does not sees you on Facebook and then bro, there's the whole decorum is taken out of it. So we are not only dealing with a situation where the world may have been changed by the pandemic, dealing with cancel culture, and in the midst of all of that, the writer is called to write. So the question I want to ask you is, in the midst of all of that, what do you think the office of the writer is? What is the writer called to do as a person? And I'm asking you this one because there's something about your writing that's a very, very serious awareness of the human condition. So, coming from that kind of place, you know what people how people are, you know, the world has changed, things are moving, you know, the kind of things people talk of, even, in fact, if they say something you don't agree with, that sense, not okay, would be careful. So in the midst of that, what is the job of the writer? The to achieve. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Things are changing, and it's to we can do that. And in the middle of the call, right? I think that the most important thing to consider is to have events you want to, and you need that that is the most important thing, right? You come to write a book. I want to story out there for writers who do literary fiction. Essentially, you're writing about life. The moment you come to that conclusion, this is what I want to do, that means you're putting something, you don't know how you're going to react. Trust. Once you're going to have people who are going to be against your book, whatever it is that you've written about, you're going to have some of people who are going to place. I is telling the truth. The job of, if you have just one person that gets the book, saying that fine, censorship, you're pressed to cancel important thing, when most important thing, you have failed as you're writing something that is not true. So is it true? Is it reflective of the time you're writing about? Those are thinking about what people are going to say about my work, what's going to, how to react to get cancelled. That means you're no longer doing art where you should, right? Which should always be.
Okay, thank you. I bring that question, the writer's relationship with the truth. Do you, first of all, agree with, he quoted actually, I find that quote very interesting. I'm wondering why, if I have a 300-page book and I don't provide any solutions, you know, I'm wondering, why should I don't tell me what to do? So, but do you agree with the writer creating headaches? We already have enough headache in the world as it is. I don't need a 300-page long headache. But, you know, do you think that's the writer's job? Just tell us questions, more questions.
I wouldn't say that, well, I can't say if I agree that it's the writer's job to create headaches, but it's also his job to provide solutions. What I feel the writer should do, place the situation before you and you decide on your own, go about it. And I would give an example. In one of my books, To Love Old, it talked about tribalism and all that. And if you read the book, you see Fadeke and Chinedu. There was Ke's father decided that, look, I didn't want my daughter to marry this guy just because he's Igbo. Now, is that the right thing to do? Could he have seen the tribe? That is an example. So, for me, is an issue of I'll write what I want to write. It is now left for you to decide if you to pick a solution from what I have written. There, and yes, people not people, definitely people would not send you, people would not call, sorry, people would not send you emails because most of the people hide on the they want to be anonymous. So because they are can you understand and think you and you don't have to antagonize the other person just because you don't agree with the other person. Views. The reason for this view, maybe I understand it from your point of view. You do not have to agree with me, but we could at a point, we could come to a meeting point, would realize, please, you have heard my view. I did not agree with what was written in. It doesn't mean I'm going to cancel that writer. I did not agree with the writer. That's the writer's truth. And my own truth is this: do not agree with what I have said.
You won't say something ever.
Yeah, I wanted to react to, this, especially what you said about Achebe and what Silva said. When you're writing, the kind of writing we're talking about, you're writing about, we're all students. We're all students of life. So whenever even if you're not setting out to say, I want to teach this particular lesson, when people get a hold of your work and they read it, pick lessons from it. In the 50s, for instance, in the 60s, actually before the war, Christopher Kibo was being interviewed, and he was asked the same question. And what he said was, as a writer, I do not have any function. I express myself, and the public can use these things for whatever they want. Your life, we're all students of life. When we read your work, we'll pick whatever lessons we want to pick. Even if the writer hasn't come out to say, oh, I'm going to teach this, I'm going to answer this question, I'm going to provide solution to this issue. But you're writing and someone picks your book, reads about a character that maybe is going through the same thing that you're going through, and have that sense of belonging. Oh, I'm not alone in this. People are struggling with what I'm struggling with. There are lessons to pick from these things.
Thank you very much. I want to turn the conversation to another angle. Say I have a podium to talk, and I intend to evolution. Say maybe I'm Pierre Lumumba, for instance, with that rousing and everyone, and I have a hall that can seat, say, 5,000 people, for instance, and dates fixed, the lights are on, I'm here, microphone is booming. I stand and I find 50 people. I want us to talk about what words can do in relation to the reading culture that everyone here is published. I'm sure if I were to ask you how your book is doing, I have a feeling that I'll get different answers and stories that are not very, very encouraging. From publishers to the sellers to the readers and to those people. Someone said to me, incidentally, it was one of my professors in school, who said to me that the only people who are reading in this country are the students in the universities. And that is because they have assignments to do. And I said, sir, I don't think so. We have book clubs, people who never read English. We have, in fact, and I now hear there is a term, physician writers, who are doctors and then they're writers. And some of the best writers that we have do not even go to study literature. So I want to talk about the reading culture. Because you have a message. You have given us a syllabus, a curriculum life, something that should lead us to, all of us, into separate kinds of thoughts. But then we have a peculiar reading culture. What can I think the question really is not what can the writer do. First of all, what can we hope to achieve with the level of reading that we have in the country? And maybe it's time to really start asking the question, what can we do differently? If reading was our only survive, yeah, I see that. Silva, you want to go first?
I mean, yeah, I could go first. If reading was our only hope, would we survive? Interesting question. The truth is, we can talk about reading culture from now till the end of today, right? Because it's a topic we discuss, especially among writers, from time to time. Like I said earlier, I'm not sure if it's this panel or the other one. It's writing in this climb is often a thankless job. You're doing it because you cannot do without doing it, right? You feel fulfilled doing it. But are people reading? My answer to that will be, okay? The question will be what after that, right? Are people reading? Yes. What are they reading? Someone like, popular, what to call him, Ikide, will tell you that, the new book that everybody reads is Twitter and Facebook, that people are consuming a whole lot of time there, and that is really the new medium for storytelling, people are telling stories per minute in their tweets, in their and reach out to
Sell to Nigerians.
Yes, exactly. Self-help books. People of it is also a symptom of something else. We established in the earlier panel, the economy is very, very bad. Poverty is very, very high. Unemployment is very, very high. So it's to get rich, to get for words, right? And in fact, because people buy them up, and they a whole lot of numbers and copies and all. So, in fiction, anybody have their own opinion. You could see it as factors leading to that, from attention span of younger people to the growth in multimedia, TV and screen time and all. If people who are parents here who games or doing something on the laptop and all, and that's the argument of people like Ikide that the stories are now online and not necessarily in printed books. There is also the aspect of An argument I don't necessarily agree with is that the books are very expensive, and books published in Nigeria that not many people can afford 3,000 to buy a book. My response to that is often, but you are happy to watch a movie, to go to the cinema and to see just a movie, but you have a book that has a greater stay with you. You can pass it down and all of that. Is also another reason, who are people reading literary fiction. Now, there was also a time, a period when most literary fiction, oppression, the military era, it's kind of disconnected from the audience, right? So most people now felt, anything you're writing is too serious stuff. We want something else. And that would now speak to opportunity for the growth in other genres like romance, crime, and books that are more humorous and that people can easier to consume. Someone told me that I spend 3 hours to go to work in the morning. I have a hard day at work. I close and I'm in traffic again for another 3 hours, and you get home at 9 p.m. in a city like Lagos. That the last thing they want to pick up a book that they have to be cracking their head to understand and follow. So they just want something easy and simple, and they can quickly, and that's what made it a boom, because it's short, it's quick, they can easily consume it, and then they move on. So all of this, and I'm sure literary fiction is not, is not being read as loved to, or as has been, in our past history, really.
Thank you. Let me come to you. Reading was our only hope. But no, I'll come to you last. I have a reason for that. I'll come to you because this man has sold more copies of a book than anybody that I know of. So let me come to you, madam. If reading was our only hope, with the reading culture that we have, we have the books, we have the storytellers, the stories. There are just not as many readers as, What are your thoughts?
So, just like I said, I do not agree that people don't read, because of recent, we've actually had more book clubs coming up. We've had more, just like you said, people don't really want to traffic and come back home. He's really tired and doesn't want to crack his head over. So people are actually, it is what people should want about, because the truth, people are actually reading. What I would love to read may probably not be what you love to read. You may love to read, about the more serious, want to read something that will have something that would relax me after a hard day. So people are actually reading. Yes, they say, that what's that adage that if you put words into, what's that word again? Writing, sorry? Hide something from it. I actually not believe that. Since I actually think that that's very insulting. Because, yes, I actually believe it is insulting, because it's like saying that does not read. But we actually read. We read, and I'm sure that if you ask a lot of people, I'm sure everyone here reads. They are here. That is the truth. That is the reason why they are here. To not say that the black man doesn't read is not. We may have different tastes in reading. There are some people that sincerely don't read. They feel, it's all much. I want something more serious. And at the same time, people that will just be like, look, I cannot come and kill myself. Nigeria is hard enough already. You now give me something that will be making me laugh. Just give me something to make me laugh. That is the reason why you also have books that's comedy and stuff like that, humorous books. Because you just really want to pick your own taste in books. So that's my own idea. So we read. So the fact that the black man doesn't read, no, I don't agree.
Okay, thank you. Eva, do you that we read? Or just that we love to read different things?
Do we read? Yes, of course. Different people read. Do no? In relation with maybe no. Do we have as much read as
No. I know
So-
that one for a fact. No.
yeah? So is that is everybody's fault? Whatever issue that we're seeing that has prompted this discussion is everybody's fault. Um, I go to when I was growing up, I didn't have my come on say, oh, you must read to write home. For just them when I was growing up. And if I can watch this book, Gifted Hands, is Ben Carson's autobiography. When he was a little boy, he was so, what's the word? What word can I use for dumb or daft? Anything like that. He was slow to the point that have an imagination. You know how I'm telling you a story, you imagine he didn't have it. And when his mom started noticing, she now started mandating them to read books. She would say, oh, no computer games, no TV. You have to read this book and come and summarize this book to me. Not even after reading it, they will have to write a summary and then they want to read. And eventually the mom say, oh, nice, you've done well. So one day the person goes to school and they ask question. Usually they laugh at him in school. So they ask a question and then he puts up his hand and everybody starts laughing. Child said, no, go, answer. And he gave the answer to the question and it was the correct answer. And he had read it. He had read about what the teacher asked from one of the books. The mother made him to read. But because he felt good about it, that he answered the question, he now started reading and he became the McCarson that we know now. It was even years later that they got to find out that the mother could not even read. They wouldn't read. Just trying to say that a child is a blank slate on which the environment. I'm not going to give birth to a child and the child will not. Is the child mad? It's not possible.
What if it's just
it starts from the home.
She doesn't agree with you. We are going to I was going to make a case for you and maybe he wants to be a rapper.
Shout out.
Yeah, so it starts from the home. And if you now step aside from the home and you now take it to publishers, publishers need to understand that a lot has changed. I mean, publishing the way it should be now, the way it was done in the 90s or 80s, a lot has changed. they need to have that business mindset. It's a business, and these are my products. My books are my product. They have to be sold. There was one time I had a conversation with you guys. I think it was one of Chico Nigwe's books, Night Dancer, published by Arisha, right? Someone did a review of the book and said a lot of not so nice things about the book. And it was published by you guys. So when I read it, I didn't understand it. The review was published by you guys. I had to call and say, why? And you now gave me the whole story of how, well, whatever review, whether positive or negative. I said, no. I said, no, it is you can't. It is your product. You can't publish a negative review of your product. So publishers need to understand that a lot has changed. And it's unfortunate that we're in this country when so when you go, to other, developed countries, you find out that there are a lot of happening amongst creatives. Unfortunately, it's not so here. The best movies, in quotes, are from books. You have the best stories in books. So you come here and you watch Nollywood and you complain about the stories. Oh, the storylines are shallow. They're this, that. But you have the stories in books. And when they feel the need to adapt your book into a movie or take that story, instead of going that route of having a discussion to know how you bring the writer in, what they do, they just take the book and the next just panabit whatever, and then you see your book as a movie. But that is what is happening. And so that partnership is important. Partnership, the publishers need to change their mindset, the home, and if you can bring it to the writer. Writers like to see themselves as some reclusive beings that don't care about fame, they don't care about the spotlight, they don't care, they just want to stay and be writing. Yeah, because they said something very important, which was suggestive of the fact that a writer writes and he feels the need to, not because he wants to have some fame. If fame or money is a bonus, but that is not the first thing you look at when you start writing. So writers need to also know that they need to be known. They need to own branding of themselves as writers. People used to, in the day, because not just because of it, because I know this man, read what this man is writing.
Publishers, you talk to the publishers more, but
anytime you have a new due, 3 months, 6 months before the book comes out, I do a list. I know who will read what I have written, who will pay premium for it. I remember when In the Name of Africa, I think some 3 months, 4 months before then, I did a list of Secret was going to come out. I did this, take it a step further with Vote of Secrets. I decided to customize, and I did after doing the list of, I got a graphic artist in my office to customized, put people's name and all of that.
So that's how.
When my publishers get, so when I give you feel special, so you give me more money.
Oh, okay. Let me. That's how you. I'll stop you right because of our time. What I hear you saying, everyone saying is, we need to take the book to people who have to read. Writers have to be, let's not bother about what everyone wants to read. Just give them what they need to read, and then let publishers handle their work like a business. That's how the power inherent will be felt by everyone. Let's see if in the next 1 minute, I wanted to ask about if we are saying that people who are students, what we are writing now, people who want to come off, it's just higher pressure and get in quotes now, quality, and that. Let's just wrap up. I'll start from you. I have about just a minute left before we leave the stage.
Everyone can't write. Everyone can't read the same thing. You back to what he said about parents doing their part, and you said that what if the child have to? My first daughter loved to read very early. I actually introduced her to reading as at age 5. She already, but I realized that my sister did not like reading. So what I did was I needed to understand what she loved. That have pictures. She's 16, but even at her age, she's picking that bold picture. So everybody wants to carry big words. So everybody can't read the same thing. Some people would read. Some people probably well, some people probably go for fiction. Some people probably get into the mind of what means I actually enjoy historical right and left for their own choice.
Our time is to go any further, but we have effectively created some edicts here this afternoon. It seems to me as if we have not exactly given many definite words are going to cause social change, cause say coup d'etat or something, but it appears to me that whatever power from both the writer being deliberate with what he's doing, the reader being hopeful of getting something. It's been an interesting panel. I wish we had more time because somehow more. Let's keep reading and we'll see the change. So thank you and thank you to the audience. Fine.
Thank you so much. That was fun. You guys wait for the CEO to come up. Everyone get in the photo. Fantastic. Did you get it? So much. Thank you so much. How is everybody feeling? Do you guys want to play a quick game before we go to the next one? A quick question. There's a mini prize to be won. Well, maybe. What edition of Qfest are we on now? Who knows? I mentioned this at the beginning. What edition of Qfest? Yeah? Fantastic. All right, it's time for our final panel session. But before we do that, I need to remind you guys that there is a spoken words competition with money to be won. It's Independence Day. It's good to go home with some cash. Please register outside for spoken words competition. Also note that there are books to buy, so head over to the bar. There is a play here tomorrow. The tickets for the play are just 5,000 naira, so you can buy tickets for the play outside. Introducing our facilitator and our next set of panelists. Our facilitator for this next panel session, which is titled Writing to the Future, our moderator actually, is the Green Queen herself, Ms. Shola Alamutu, a writer, environmentalist, tourist consultant, children, women, and cultural rights advocate, and promoter of children's literature. Could we all give her a round of applause as she makes it up to the stage? Green Queen, thank you for coming. It's such a pleasure to have you. Okay. Good afternoon, Ma. Thank you so much. Please take first seat. Yeah. The mic is there. Just turn it on when you're ready to speak. All right. Our first panelist needs no introduction. I spoke about him earlier. He's wearing many hats during this Qfest festival. He is no other than Jude Idada. He's the winner of the NLNG, Nigeria Prize of Literature, and an AMAA Screenplay Award, an ENA Prize for Drama. He's also the one who's writing and directing the play tomorrow, so make sure you get some tickets. Thank you so much for coming, Jude. This festival would itself without you. Okay. Our next panelist is Mrs. Erumana Amata. She's a writer, a content provider, and a trainer who loves working and interacting with children. Could you please give a round of applause as she comes up? Thank you so much for coming, Ma. Woo. I'm very excited about this panel. The future, Gen Z. Miss. Oh, okay, sorry, Ma. Thank you so much, Ma. Your mic is here. You can just turn it on when you're ready. We have a nice mix on this panel, quite a few ladies and gents. The next panelist is Mr. Dixon Ekegure. Mr. Dixon is a Nigerian author, playwright, entrepreneur who serves as a director at Trispec Solutions, a publishing company. Could we please give him a round of applause as he comes up? Thank you so much, sir, for coming. See him with the red mask as well, the first edition of Qfest. Thank you so much. Please have your seat. Our final panelist um, is in here, but she's joining us via Zoom. Mrs. Olubumi Abodering Talabi. Mrs. Olubumi is an author, the publisher, and the converter of the Akada Children's Book Festival. She also sits on the board of Punch Nigeria Limited. Welcome, Ma. And let's let the discussions begin. Thank you so much.
Hello, and good afternoon. Happy Independence Day, everyone. Happy Independence Day, everyone. Happy Independence Day. Whether you're happy or not, it's our Independence Day. We need to wish ourselves, because it's good for us. Okay, so I just want to say thank you, Koran. Sure she can.
Okay, she's on all the screens now.
Okay, I'm sure. I don't think she's even saying. So we need to work on that.
Okay.
And I'll just have everyone introduce themselves quickly, but I'm going to ask this question. What is it that made you actually in children? So I'll start with
if we're still under the colonial rule, maybe we will have some foreigners determining our future, our path. If they're ready now, at least, before choose the opportunity to expand, use it free. Going to your question, I actually am a child of everything children. At this age, I have to say, I watch animations. I watch SpongeBob SquarePants. Watching the so sometimes I even go, that's how bad, in quote, it can be. So I'm a child at heart, and I've always loved everything about children. And the reason I think I enjoy children, the ability to escape it. to want to wander and wander through the mind of a child, to understand them, to quit them, to see how their world truly is. Why them in the way, and why them? So far, it's been beautiful. It's a form of writing. I also do other form of writing, but children writing is beautiful, and I enjoy it a lot.
Okay. I'm watching actually, but I go to children's program. Anytime I hear his car, I rush away because he's wondering, what are you doing? Watching Nickelodeon or Disney. He doesn't understand. And what I those children's programs themselves. Is okay, you have Prince Charming coming to win the hand of his bride. Always wanted, okay, when you delve into the mind of a child, you size, and that's what encouraged me. Plus the fact that majority of my friends are from age 0 to maybe when they're in their teens. I like talking with them, and they like talking with me. You see, I have a neighbor who is years old, and in the man, they'll be questioning me, and it's so sweet, so cute. They talk very intelligently, and I thought, okay, I love reading. I started writing at an early age. I started writing for children, and that's how I got into children, and I love writing because if I go on, I no go stop. So let me leave.
Okay. Do we still have Miss Tala?
It doesn't look.
Okay.
Yes, I'm still here.
All right. Could you please tell us how your interest in children's books started?
Well, mine started when I became a mother, and I read that it's optimal to read bedtime stories to your children. And I started books in our environment with children, and I found most of them were from different cultures, and I wanted more for the youngest of children, more picture books, more board books that were relevant culturally and appropriate culturally for children growing up in our environment. And what I discovered was that the market was sparse. There were few picture books, but not many. So I started writing, and then that developed into publishing different titles of children's picture books. If you can hear me. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
I don't know whether she's in. Okay, let's continue.
Move on to, we heard you, Mr. Alabi, so we'll move on to Jude.
Okay, I think the people controlling should type and let her know that we can hear her.
The volume has gone right down. So if anybody can adjust the volume so that I can also hear you, that would be great. Thank you.
Please carry on.
Thank you.
We need the administrator, like Eruma said,
Would
type.
you be so kind as to repeat the question?
What started your interest?
Please, you said, when did my interest in children's books start? Okay, please, we can hear the things. Else on the line, could that person kindly mute their Zoom, please? Thank you. So as I said, my interest in children's books started when I became a parent. I wanted that and targeted at the youngest of readers. So I was looking for books and featured that looked like us, so characters and stories and time in our found not of the type but still now, even though it's much better with different cultures and different countries. So I then began to write more stories, more illustrated stories to share in household, but then later
Okay, we need to continue. So I understand your interest in children's books was because you were looking for books, particularly pictorial ones for young children that had characters that look like I. So you then got into writing so that they will have more of such books. So we heard you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have Jude. He's going to tell us how he
Happy
got
Independence. Oh, me, I would make it really fast. For me, I'm one of those people who, as a child, I didn't really read children's books. My first book, adult book, my father gave me at 4 years old, and it was this big. So my mind matured very early, so I was a cautious child. So I embraced children's books later in life, but from a perspective of the angle of developmental literature. I always believed, or I still believe, that the foundation when I encounter
a main character, and that main character always either would get into trouble, come up with tricks, and then in the end either punish. And those stories, what they did, infuse moral into children. For me, it was my father. Father used to tell us stories from my part of the country. I am from Niger Delta. I am Isoko by tribe. So my father used to tell us stories. Actually, the main cat most time was a tortoise. And so we had stories about the tortoise and how tortoise would always want to, the trickster. Actually, tortoise was a trickster. And we learned from that our father told us how not to behave. So if you notice, when the NTA started by moonlight, for every story, there was always a lesson to be learned. And in case of your sit down was what used to happen in the days gone by. And I believe that that is where children literature began, where the aim of telling those stories is one, to educate, two, to entertain, because the was like a call and response. They would have used, there was humor. It's always something that you would moral to be learned. A story. And these are the kind of things I incorporated in my book, but which is like a present day, I mean, set in present day, but you have all these things incorporated. And so I think for me, that's when children literature would have begun in Nigeria, from the tales our parents used to tell us by the candlelight or by the moonlight or wherever it was. I believe that's where children literature would have begun. So I don't, Dixon, what do you have to say?
Thank you. Okay, so Dixon, tales by moonlight or light or whatever, light, candlelight. educate, would entertain, had a moral. There's always a moral lesson to learn. Do you think children's literature has gotten better or worse over the years?
Well, that is not a question I'll just say yes or no. Because we find out that every day brings its new changes. And we also found out what was to be very moral those days are seen to be these.
Sadly.
So, and then you also have to define what is moral. What most in terms we based on have, we're raised, we see our culture, literature, and yesterday's literature, they were compared with what were better than today's. Because one thing I've come to realize is that writers these days, as the time goes, they are also trying to adjust to the new changes.
Yeah.
So it is no longer a lot about tortoise. It is no longer a lot about how the stories were told. That is how stories be. They should help children to understand what is happening. Sometimes also what has happened. But there's a way you should be able to bring these things together to be able to tell a good story where the child is learning from yesterday, understanding what is happening today, and knowing what he is expected to do for tomorrow. So, is the literature of today good? Yes and no. Because a lot of things we call moral, they have actually been brought down to nothing. Although we call it civilization to an extent, but on the other hand, to what extent is civilization? To what extent is modernization? To what extent should culture be African culture or from what we call modernization? So when writers are writing these days in what we call civilization and modernization into their writing, the more. So if it is good for today, if it is good for yesterday, I will not say entirely or capital yes. You understand? So becoming more subjective and relative. In fact, the word truth is becoming even more relative and subjective every day. What is true to you may be a lie to me. What is true in religion will be a lie to my religion, or to the one who does not even practice any religion. So one thing I've also tried to preach is the fact that the home is meant to teach children morals. The home is meant to teach children what is very good and what is very bad, what is acceptable in that family, what has helped the family to grow. Now, when they leave the home and go to school, what they should be exposed to, I call it exposition, exposed to objectivity. They should be presented with facts and be asked to determine what is right and what is wrong based on the info. Because I remember back in the days, they used to say we shouldn't drink coconut water as children. So that's the information they may be passing to us as young children for a reason at home. In fact, let's say egg. Now, because father does not want the children to be dragging egg with the elderly ones at home, so they'll tell them children's egg. Now, when they go to school, the father tried not to drag or to abuse the difference between him and the elderly one, so they have separated that. When the child goes to school, the child is now taught the nutrients in eggs, the importance of a child eating, and then the child left to decide these objective facts that egg will be beneficial to my health, or the moral aspect of my father at home. So this is where authors will now come in and at least stand in, just like the literature should stand between modern and the past and bring what I call unity, a synergy, so that children are learning from the past and understanding today and becoming even more creative for tomorrow. So literature of today, yes, to an extent they are good, and I wouldn't say entirely no. But it depends on what you're also comparing with.
Okay, thank you. It brings me a question I want to ask you, Jude. A good book. Considering you have a book that has won what is known as the highest prize in the side of the divide book for children.
Well, what is a good book? It's very subjective. There's no work of art that satisfies the demographics that confront it. For the writer, there's a certain satisfaction you get. For the reader, there's another satisfaction they get. And then we have the critics, we have the press, we have myriads of people who engage. There's no way to answer that question that is there a good book. But what you want to know is that did the book succeed in achieving the desire of the writer? Because that's where the whole journey starts from. Dixon had said something which I concur with, about objectivity and all of that. But there's something else he said that is also open to discussion. When we look at African literature or we look at the African experience, and we tend to think that modernity is only Western. We believe that to be African is to remain in the past, to be cultural. And let me not say we refuse, we still dilly-dally on that edge that says that we ourselves, in the trajectory of development as a people, our culture also has evolved. And evolution, there is cross-semination experience that is global in nature. So a good book will be a book that encapsulates the experience of the writer, the experience of the world the writer has created, that work of art can wield the suspension of disbelief. That means it can transport the reader from a place where they confront that work to a place where everything in that work, they take it as a truth. Because that is only when the powers of the didactic powers cast the subtle message that is contained in the book. I'll just, she said something about NLNG and my winning of it. When I won the NLNG Nigeria Prize for Literature, and when the night they gave me the award, one of the professors, I think I don't know, it's a Dr. Umuko or Muko, I can't pronounce his name correctly. He came up to me and he said, Jude, I read your book at 2 a.m. in the morning. And for 24 hours, I just found myself crying. Like I'll just burst into tears at intervals. Because Boom Boom, Ege Boom, and Osaik, their journey was so real that even when I disengaged from the book, they followed me. So I think that is when you know a book is good, that the characters themselves have come alive to be real in your experience, real in your mind, real in the things that you aspire to do, the things you are doing, and the things you want to do. So a good book is good for you, bad for me. It's a maybe for you, but something like that.
Omar. Okay, so Ms. Talabi, considering started and you have cultural books, I'd like you to comment from that angle on what it is we're discussing here, which basically is about children's literature. Is it good? Is it bad? What is?
So, you'd asked the question earlier on about, comparing the children's literature landscape in Nigeria is like now to previous. And, I don't know, 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, we had, authors like Chinua Achebe or Cyprian Quincy who also wrote early reader chapter books for primary school children. But the market that, I'm specifically working in children's publishing, working on, which is the picture book market, is for the youngest of children. And the reason why it meant a lot to me is because children, before they're 5, They learned so much. They are in the stage of ripe cognitive development. And the material that you put in their ability to communicate, their ability to reason, their ability to express themselves, and so forth, their ability to write, and their world view. It affects all these things. So for me, it was actually quite urgent. It was an imperative to make sure that we had books that had our narrative, books that that there is good in what we do. Our foods also have value, our language has value, our music has value, people like us have value. Even from the tortoise, which has had a lot, but lots of other different stars of their own. What I'm trying to make is that I don't know why I've not been able to discover for young children books to read at bedtime to your children that are based in this environment. Maybe there are lots of them somewhere, I just haven't found them yet. What I've noticed is that of late we've had a boom of authors, of children's authors writing for children in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's really exciting to see the growth in the industry. So much so that there's now an association called Association of Children's Authors and Illustrators of Nigeria. And it's a group of writers and children's picture books in particular who have come together to support each other and really develop this nascent sector, because we all identify in one or another it is important for children before they're one, before they start talking, to have stories that have a positive narrative related to them. Already something about the books and the way it was, forgive me if I didn't catch who it was because the sound comes in and out. But one of the things that the modern day children's picture book authors to agree on, children's book environment in the past tended to be what we consider overly didactic, too obvious a message. And we believe that it is more important to teach the facts, then you learn how to decipher wrong. So some of the stories, in fact, a lot have children's picture books that in Nigeria that happen to children that would be of interest to under 5. So necessarily a tagline that says, oh, and that's why it's important not to steal. In the subtext of the story, there is enough woven in there to help a child reach a decision and hopefully understand the difference between right and wrong without actually force-feeding that message, as it were. So yes, as somebody said previous, there is going to be what other people consider good. But right now, the focus for us is to let children in this environment know that there is value in their color, there is value in culture, there is value in their environment, even if it may be tough to see. There is value in their foods, which is why in nowadays, instead of featuring sport, the children and so on and so forth, music and so on and so forth. And the last thing I wanted to say was about teaching children how to think, or giving children the tools to be creative, to be innovative, to be free, to not try to constrain them. And that's the essence of what I believe we're trying to achieve in the children's book industry, the young children's book industry right now.
Thank you very much. Could we please put our hands together for her, please? Thank you. Basically, we're trying to move from those days of children should be seen and not heard. So you just sit down in the corner and keep quiet. So even in our writings, we should also allow children to be seen and be heard. We need to write in such
a way. If I may, can I add something?
Yes, go ahead.
Jude, yes. One of the reasons why that book resonated so much, I like to think one of the reasons why that book resonates so much with readers. The main character, the dog that can be good. It takes a skillful writer to know how to present that in a manner that is believable. Play a very vital role in that. Ege Boom Boom's brother is instrumental in the match for his sister. So it's a great example of it's a great example of a children's book that encourages children to think and is not overly didactic.
Thank you once again. Okay, so Mr. Alabi, she's thrown a challenge to us and all those who write for children that we need more books that are telling our own story with people, characters that look like us. There aren't enough. Or if there are, again, I go back to there aren't enough good ones, and they're not being read, and they're not being seen. So we need to, because a lot of the younger ones, I know I get approached to write books for the very children, and that's when it is need to start creating this interest in children when they're very young. So that's a challenge for us. I also, I don't know who wants to answer this, how interest of children in reading be encouraged in homes? How can we encourage reading in homes? I have my opinion, but I'm thinking, how can we encourage reading? Children to read in homes. Because it's said that children don't read. Nigerian children don't read. I agree. But if it is true, what can we to ensure that there's more children reading in homes? In schools, we have an idea of what we can do. In the home,
I'm asked this question a lot.
Yes, because yeah.
And I always say, let your children see you read. When parents say, oh, how can I get my child to read more? I say, let your children see you read, because they do what they see. And if they see you pick up a book and choose over switching on the TV to another run of your favorite episode, your children will get the message that reading is also a form of entertainment, that reading has a place in your household. The other thing I tell parents is have a reading corner. If it can be just a chair, and you can just designate that, okay, this is the place where if you want to read, come sit here, pick up a book and start reading. And then I tell them books everywhere. Strategically leave books lying in different parts of the house. And also keep interesting age books in places where your children spend time, like for example, if they're on a bus going in a car going a book in the car, or even if it's been a long time in the back, but the key is to make sure that the books are appropriate.
I tend to agree with you. A lot of parents spend time watching television or reading. They're not seeing you read. So it's what they are learning. They are learning to be on the phone. They are learning to watch. They are learning to be talking, chitty-chatting, and going out and gisting with their friends. And so if reading isn't a habit in your house, then it's not going to be easy for the children to pick it up and be good readers. So it's something that needs to start in the home. Does anybody want to add to that? Jude, yes.
Okay, yeah, something really quick. Just said I totally agree with her. And my father did that. I saw my father read. I saw my mother read. Instinctively, we are 8 kids. We just read. It's just second nature to us. That's one. Number two, growing up, we used to watch the news together. When you come from school, you had to submit a summary of the news. I had been doing since I was 7 years old. Did I have any choice but be a good writer? I had no choice. Number two, every week, you had to pitch the book you were reading to every other person in the family. You had a story. And we did this from childhood, every of us. So now, when my mother is having a birthday on Zoom, or when we come on these Zoom calls where other people have to be invited, people who are not Idadas, the first they go away with is the amount of references we make to books and to characters. And they're like, how come you guys know about so many books and so many? It was about books. So our parents created that ecosystem where the book was centerpiece in it. So she's saying it right, she said it right. Your child is a sponge. What your child sees is what your child will do. I am not married, I don't have children, but anytime people, my friends who are married, and they tell me, oh, my child is having a birthday, I go there, and what's my gift? My gift is a book. But you have to see the way the parents look at me. Like, why are you giving the child a book? So you can see, and the child sees that the book is negative. It's not something positive that I should have given the child. So they will say, gift, and we not send a book it bring. They don't pay. So those kids never.
Okay, can I say something here? I had mentioned